From New York to discuss is New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. He's one of those Democrats on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee who wrote that letter. First, Senator, we have to ask about this testimony from the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch. She says that she was removed because of unfounded and false claims made by people with questionable motives. What's your reaction to that?
Well, Marie Yovanovitch is one of the most premier career Foreign Service officers we have, an extraordinary ambassador. I sat through some of her nomination hearings when I was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. She's among the best of the best. And so she was straightforward from what I understand her testimony to be. And it is incredibly alarming that the Secretary of State is not standing by our career people. Incredibly alarming that she points out that private citizens, in this case Mr. Giuliani and others, were having a shadow diplomacy into Ukraine, circumventing the U.S. Embassy and the ambassador there, and doing the bidding, I guess, of the president at the end of the day. And so this is a manifestation of what is going on in the State Department. And if you begin to connect the dots here, connect the dots to not only the ousting of the ambassador because she was insisting on the proper channels and fighting corruption in the Ukraine, evidently others who had interest didn't think she was in their interest. You add the dots to these monies that we found out today were being funneled from foreign sources into the election cycle of the president's election cycle and others. You add the conversations that Putin has had with the president as it relates to Ukraine and other places. And so you get the picture that what we have here is not the national security of the United States being pursued, but the president's personal interests.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Rudy Giuliani. He is all over her opening statement. She says that she does not know why he had it out for her, but that he did and that he wanted her to be removed. Do you need to hear from Rudy Giuliani? Do you think he needs to appear before the Senate on a hearing in this?
Absolutely. There's a whole host of people we want to hear before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, because these things, in addition to whatever the House is pursuing in terms of any potential articles of impeachment, these go to the very essence of our foreign policy. How did Mr. Giuliani become a de facto ambassador for the United States in Ukraine? Who authorized him to do that? What did Secretary Pompeo know? Why was Ambassador Yovanovitch, a career ambassador, a distinguished one, ultimately moved out of her position? Why was monies that the United States taxpayer and the Congress gave to Ukraine to defend Ukraine against Russian aggression that normally takes 5 days to process, take 2 months? And then you have the calls of the president in between, and those who led up to the calls to ultimately lay the foundation that if you play ball with the president, then you're going to get what you need. This undermines the national security of the United States. So yes, I'd like to have Mr. Giuliani. I want to have the secretary. I want to have Ambassador Yovanovitch. I want to have Ambassador Sondland. And there's a whole host of others who should come before the committee, because we have to understand whether this State Department is pursuing the national interests of the United States, the national security of the United States, or the personal interests of the president.
Now, Senator, the former ambassador, says that she was told by Deputy Secretary of State John Sullivan that she was being relieved of her duties. Less than an hour ago, President Trump announced that Sullivan is his pick to be the next ambassador to Russia. Does that raise any alarms for you?
Well, look, I appreciate Undersecretary Sullivan, but he's got a lot of questions to answer. I don't believe that you can use the Nuremberg defense. I was just following orders. You need to stand up. When you're in a position of authority within the State Department, as the Secretary is, as he is, you need to stand up for our career people. You need to push back against the politics of the White House, particularly when those politics are perverse. I need to understand what is it that he did in this regard other than deliver the bad news to her that she was being recalled. I want to know what his views would be as it relates to Russia, because I have serious concern concerns that President Putin has greater influence on President Trump than anybody else in this administration. And if you're going to be the ambassador to Russia, you've got to stand up for U.S. interests. I don't know what his understandings are with the president on this assignment, whether this is a reward for having conformed with what the White House wanted as it related to Ambassador Yovanovitch or others. There's a whole host of questions. This is going to be one tough nomination hearing as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Senator Bob Menendez, we look forward to that. Thank you so much for the time, sir.
Thank you.
Meantime, federal investigators are attempting to follow the money, and what they're uncovering is an incredibly intricate and tangled web of political connections.